we want to save as much time as possible for our speaker, because he's going to tell us some things that may make us a little uncomfortable. Keith Ballard is a 17-year veteran classroom teacher, K-12 in public schools. He's also a decorated educator who has won over 30 teaching awards, was California Teacher of the Year, and was a 2003 Milken United States National Educator of the Year. On his own dime, he's done a lot of research in educational programs in other countries, including China and India. He's very concerned about the future of public education, as all of us should be. And it's with great pleasure that I introduce Keith Ballard and give him all the time that I would have spent reading his lengthy resume.
This, unfortunately, isn't one of those presentations that you're going to leave feeling good, okay? This is all about honesty. And honesty is something in America that we're really missing here, right? I see it all the time in our schools, what we're doing in this country, from education to the way we run our businesses, the way we run our government, okay? So hopefully, even if you don't agree with me, and you should, because I've done my homework, I really have. I know. This is one of the ones that took me to China and India.
Occasionally I do homework, like over the weekend. Let's see, on Monday I had to give a presentation in my macroeconomics class, and I started it on Sunday at about 4:30. So I was on the computer working on that until about 2 in the morning.
Because I want to do pre-med.
Of course, these are the American university students.
So it's not going to be as much fun. My mom has always said that college was kind of a big step. It's just where you kind of learn to balance free time and studying. I want to join a sorority, which obviously you're going to party a lot, you have some fun.
America is the one country in the world that doesn't seem to recognize that it's in competition for the great minds in the capital of the world.
上课。老师好，请坐。
这是 strength in numbers。我比如说睡觉以前我就会看。这就是我第一次碰到微积分的题目，就是它就是在这里面以非常简单的语言来讲述微积分是怎么一回事情。
Americans aren't globally aware. They're more worried about what's happening in their community than they are in the world. Americans don't know they're competing with Indians and Chinese.
Brains are everywhere. Discoveries can be made everywhere. And industries built on those discoveries also can be anywhere.
You have to find A in the first equation, then substitute it.
In India, once you get into this academic course and you're serious about it, you don't have much of the option to choose between.
One example of one of the 48 interviews that I did, and rather than me tell you, it will go a lot faster. So you can watch this, and then this will be a nice setup for the rest of the presentation.
We want to talk about education because we have a guest who has gotten first-hand experience about the gap when it comes to education between the United States and other countries. We always say we're number one, we're the best, but his findings would indicate otherwise. We'd like to introduce you to Keith Ballard. He is a middle school teacher from San Diego, and welcome to the show, Keith.
It's an honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
What got you interested in doing this?
Well, sheer frustration. I've been teaching for 17 years. I was a 2003 Milken United States National Educator, and I knew something was wrong, and I could see it in the generation. So I researched this, and I decided to go to China and India for 30 days. I looked inside 22 schools, and let me tell you, it's not just a little bit better, it's a whole lot better. And specifically China, here's how I tried to describe it, since we all seem to understand the game of football here in America. The Chinese public educational system is so good. It's something like the NFL, the National Football League. Sorry to say, in America, folks, we're playing no better than high school football.
That big a gap.
It is. It's astounding.
it just the time that the kids spend in the classroom, or is it greater than that?
Well, it's a number of things. Number one, I was in 22 schools and never saw a discipline problem, and never saw an unruly student. I couldn't say the same thing about that here. I mean, discipline is out of control. A lot of administrators would disagree with.
Changed our school system, the educational system. We got to change home, our home life.
We have to change home. We have to change so much here. And you know what? You know what it's going to be? People are the ones that are going to have to change. It's individuals, communities, family. Government cannot do that. It's people.
Right.
You're going to hear about this man, I have a feeling. Keith Ballard is his name. We thank you so much. And you're going to continue your tour. He's going up to Chico next. We wish you the best of luck.
Again, it was an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
So, I made a mistake when I said it. I said China and India are putting vast resources. India has a lot of problems. And anybody from India here? Or anybody been to India? Okay, so you know. They have their own problems, but they're moving ahead. They clearly are moving ahead. But China is the one that's good. I mean, India has a lot of really intelligent kids and highly disciplined kids. It's really not their public school system there because infrastructure-wise, I was in public schools over there, didn't have doors or windows, and the kids sit on the floor all day in yoga position for 8 or 10 hours a day. I mean, they do. It's amazing, but they're learning. That's the thing, and they're hungry. They're really hungry, and they want what we have, and they're more than happy to take it away, and they're taking it piece by piece. So India will be a clear competitor in the future, but China is the game right now. Isn't it funny how even in the past, Napoleon knew when to stop and let China sleep, for when she wakes, she will wake the world, and she certainly has. Next, please. So where did the idea kind of come from? I'm not in real good shape now, but I do a fair amount of mountain climbing. I've done some really big mountains, and this is the highest one in the Americas, Aconcagua. And if you've ever done any mountaineering, it's pretty boring. Sometimes it's exciting, but a lot of times you're just sitting around. If you climb Everest or big mountains like this, you just sit around at base camps, and you got a lot of time just to do nothing, acclimate, right, to altitude. And so I was reading books, take up a bunch of books with me, and I decided if I got up the largest mountain in the Americas, in North and South America, that my next trip would be, the next mountain I would climb would be to China and India, and to do what I'm doing. And so, next please. And so I achieved that goal, and so here I am. Now, even if you don't agree with what I have to say, I hope you read this book, okay? I don't know if anybody heard of Thomas Friedman? Sure. The world is flat, and that used to be us. And Thomas Friedman, and for those people that might not know, he's the foreign affairs columnist for the New York Times. He's a 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner. He's a world traveler, so he understands what's going down. And a lot of people say Thomas Friedman's a pessimist. He's been claimed. A lot of people think. I think Thomas and myself are realists. We're both world travelers. I've traveled, on most of the continents and lived extensively with people. Next, please. So we talked a little bit about Confucius. It's amazing, Confucius being before Christ, the greatest philosopher in Chinese. But yet, to this day, Confucius has such a clear psyche, a clear, profound psyche in the minds of the Chinese people. And education is a huge part of that. Here's a quote from that. Actually, that used to be us. Came from this presidential speech in 2011. And what I'd say to President Obama, it makes perfect sense to understand what's going on in this world, especially in China and Singapore, if you've been inside the classrooms. Now, if you're just going to China and you see the Great Wall and all the stuff there, you can see all these great things happening, but when you're inside those classrooms, you can see how the beast is being built. Now, it's relentless. It is relentless. It's hardcore. But I don't see any problem with that. Maybe China's going a little bit overboard. Maybe. But we've gone so far the other way that it's to the point of absolute ridiculousness. Next, please. So, a lot of people think China's not very innovative. And I know they steal a lot of intellectual property, there's no doubt about that. But they certainly are doing some amazing things over there too. You know, the Three Gorges Dam, sure it changed the climate in those areas. But I mean, this is something that's never been done. I mean, this makes Hoover Dam look like a little fly. You know, they have, I was over there in Qingdao and Shanghai and Qingdao, and you know, they have these incredible fast trains. They have the fastest trains in the world now, you know. But here we are. The military is actually, they've clearly have said that, you know, China is a threat militarily. I mean, they're major. And I have friends that are both enlisted and officers that every day they tell me, almost on every day, they're talking about China. China, China, China. I mean, that's what it is. But yet, in our own educational community, we just kind of blow this thing off. And I'm going to show you later what's coming. Now, as far as, you probably heard about China's new aircraft here that they're putting out, that they bought from the Russians, right? But you probably don't know that they have 3 of these in design that are bigger than anything we got coming out. And you'll probably see these out within the next 8 to 10 years. The superstructures have already been started to being built. These are catamarans. I mean, this is just one. This is really thinking out of the box, folks. So even our new Ford class carriers coming, these are going to be bigger and larger. So don't underestimate China. Clearly, I think Dan Rather said I heard him in the Asian Society in a clear, he said, you know, one thing we've done here in America is we've just clearly underestimated China, the power of the people and what they can do. Next, please. And again, you know, this is Shanghai. You know, when I was in Shanghai and I came back, as Tom Friedman says, I'm going to steal his quote, but he said, you know, Shanghai is like being in the Jetsons, and when you come back to LA, you feel like you're going back into the Flintstones. And I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, this is just the way it is. We're not teaching, you know, in retrospect, I know you hear a little bit about Mandarin being taught here and there and here, but gosh, guys, in China, at age 3, I was in these kindergartens. You can watch my videos from my YouTube, and they have the kids in kindergarten singing our ABCs at age 3. So they're getting English every day. So as I'm interviewing kids in high school and kindergarten, they know what they have to do. And so their kids are ready, and they're really taking this seriously. But remember, they're doing 230 days a year, and we're still trying to do the same thing, cram more and more and take from this in the same amount of time. We're clearly, folks, listen to this, in Asia, the country that does the least amount of education would be South Korea, and that's 205 days a year. Okay? So that's it. That's the minimum. And so what I'm here to tell you is that even if you were in Poway District, not even those kids, the high-end kids over there, in my opinion, I wouldn't put my money that they will compete with the high-end kids in China. Just because if you go with what I call time on task, and most teachers will agree with me, the more you do it, the better you're going to get, right? When a typical Chinese kid, by the end, is going to be 6 years ahead, how can you compete with that? You can't unless you're doing that type of time. That's what it's about. Next, please. And you should know this one by now. What do you think, folks?
China.
No, it's China. You see, China's a little mad here because India, when you call AT&T and you call anybody else, who are you talking to these days?
India.
These people, very well educated people in South India. Yeah, they're a little bit hard to understand, but you know, they're getting better too. But remember, China's saying, hey, you know what? We have control of most of the world's goods. We're not happy about that because India has taken, you know, this huge service sector. So guess what China's trying to get their hand into now? You got it. They're teaching their kids because they want to steal some of that market from India, which is the ability to speak English. So what I did is I left from San Diego last September, went to Qingdao, China. This is Shanghai about here. Spent some time over there. I was in 10 schools there. I know 10 isn't all of China, but it gives you a pretty good picture. Then I went to Madras, which is Chennai, even went further south and studied more schools. I went to Mumbai, I studied some schools in there. I mean, I spent 10, 12 hours a day in these schools. I lived with families. Picked up some gas in London on the plane, 8 hours there. And returned back to San Diego. I did this on my own time, money, you know, just because I wanted to do this. I don't think anybody's done this. I mean, I Googled it. I know some teachers might have gone, but not to the extent of how I did this. I didn't do, literally, I did no sightseeing. I was just in schools. That's it. That was my main reason. Next, please. You know, I know we're running out of time because this is about an hour and a half person, but I want to go over a couple things here real quick. These are some reasons that motivated me to go, but here's one that really motivated me. When I saw these reasons, when I saw this information, I said, no, this can't be right. This is wrong. So I Googled it, and I looked at more research. I said, wow, this is right. Listen to this. Military Admiral's General Report. It came out December 7, 2010. 3 out of 4 kids between the optimum recruiting age for the U.S. military, between 17 and 24, couldn't get in the military even if they tried. I'll say that again. They couldn't get in the military even if they tried. Now, I graduated from Mount McGill High School over here in Spring Valley. Let me tell you something, folks. If you couldn't figure out what you wanted to do, you could get in the military. That is not an option anymore. 3 out of 4 can't get it. Why? Because they failed to graduate from high school. Number 2, they failed the physical fitness test because 1/3 of them are obese. Okay, so they can't make it. And they have a criminal record, and they can't meet the minimum requirements on the ASVAB test, which is an enlisted, entry test, which isn't really rocket science. It would be stuff that if you just did average in high school, you could pass it. So for all these reasons, 3 out of 4. Now, folks, I'm not being pessimistic here. That's the youth of America. Sorry to say, that's what we're dealing with here. And remember, I know that we have a lot of rules and regulations here. I'd be first to say that. But the United States, we're 5% of the world population. We have 25% of the world's incarceration. There are some states these days that spend more on their incarceration budget than they do on their education budget. It's the truth. Next, please. Okay, now even if you cut me off real fast, I want you to see these 2 things. I think it's 4 or 5 more slides, and I know we're going to be on the other side. Now, this is one of the reasons why I went over there. If we were Canada, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Because if you look at Canada, Canada's in the top 10. Now, this test is the PISA test. It's the Program for International School Assessment. This test is what our government says is the #1 determinant on how our kids in the U.S. compete against the rest of the world. Now, China decided in 2009, folks, listen to this. They wanted to, remember, they're just growing. They're just getting into this. So they just decided in 2009, you know what, we want to take we'll take a whack at this test and see how we do it. Now, they only did Shanghai region. But Shanghai region would be like New York times 2.5, okay? Okay, listen to this. First year out. First in math, first in reading, and first in science. Now, our educators before that always dismissed China. They said, oh, but that's rote learning. Now, they're not very good. Sure, those kids can do it. But guess what? The PISA test is based on not just what you learn, academic achievement, but folks, it's based on application. Can you apply it? So according to our government, it's the #1 way to determine who's going to lead and innovate in the future. And this is how our country is done. And this is after spending the 2nd most amount of money in the world on education. There you go. Okay, now, anybody know what this is real fast? The results. Okay, this is the Olympics. This is how we did in the Olympics. Now look, sorry it's a little bit small, but look, U.S. did great. But if this were education, we would be down here in 23 or 24 with South Africa and Ethiopia. Now, if that had happened in the Olympics, there would have been this huge, people would have been, I can't believe this is happening. We need to get gyms and we need to do this and do that. But yet, we're doing this every single day. And most people are walking around and go, well, yeah, there's a problem, but what can we do? But this is what it is. Next, please. Okay, 3 more, and I promise we're done. So what I want to do is I want to show you what a typical last semester would look like here in a California school. These are all kids that are going to college, okay? So you can see we got, I even threw in physics. You don't need that, but I wanted to help us. Okay, so we got math analysis. We got health. I mean, that's not too tough. U.S. government isn't too hard. Okay, this is what it looks like. Would be here in the U.S. for many kids going to university level. Now, this is China. 230 days a year. Now, I was in these schools. Literally, about 10% of their kids actually live at school. But if they're not living in school, they're there by 6:30. So they're waking up at 6:10. They do these runs. I don't think we have time to go through that. I have some video of it. But they're running around, 4 times in platoon formation, like together. It's unbelievable. And but this is what it looks like. Look, heavy in science, math, Chinese. I mean, the lights are out at 10 o'clock at night. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, that's too much. That's excessive. Folks, it may be obsessive, but that's the competition. That's the competition. That's just the way it is. It's just like if you're a military and you have a nuclear bomb and you don't, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just that's the way it is. Next, please. And here's India. Now, India's a little bit looser here, but you'll still see India at 225 days a year, so they're getting much more time on task. But look at the difference. What are they heavy in? Heavy in what? You got it. You got it. That's right. Heavy in science and math, where we're not. Now, we're going to go into the last slide, because I know you're looking at me saying, no, this is it. But listen to this. This is unbelievable, too. And I read this and I said, I can't believe it. And I called up principals that I knew, and I said, tell me about it. Is this true? And they're like, yeah, it's true. Now look at this. 80% of our K-5 teachers spend 1 hour or less per week on science instruction. Now this was up in San Francisco. It's the same thing here. 1 hour or less of science instruction. Now, and literally 20% don't do any at all. Why? Because of the federal mandates. What they say is important and what is not, and science isn't. So where kids in China and India are getting science, they're hitting it hard right from kindergarten. What's the take from this? By the time they're in junior high, they're not what? They're not interested because it hasn't been there. It's not a priority. So, and science and math is really what's going to run the world. Next.